What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? What is your greatest weakness? Probably that I have no strengths. Those big, blue eyes of yours. My eyes are brown. And my second greatest weakness would probably be observational skills, I guess. Why do you want to work here? I'd say my greatest weakness is listening. When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was, the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. I have a hard time saying no, but you just did. I have a hard time saying the N-word. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry yet. If you are younger, say inexperience, anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. For my current job, I said that I had a hard time sharing my ideas with new groups. You/idea hogger 18. I'm terrible at interviews. Actual weakness, taking on jobs by myself, not taking time to train other people to do them. In the end, I'm usually the guy and find myself feeling burnt out. Probably could be worded better at an interview, but this could sound like you're a go-getter. It might also encourage your employer to find opportunities for you to train other people to do things you particularly don't like doing. I work in healthcare and always say not speaking Spanish, and odds are the interviewer is also not fluent in Spanish, so it comes across as not really a weakness. Win-win. Weak against fire and sharp objects. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice can backfire. That's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. I hate this interview question. I interview candidates every few months. This is a totally useless question. The field I interview for usually has passionate people, so instead I ask, of all the aspects of doing job, which part of the process do you enjoy the most? Nobody is nervous about this question. Gives me some insight into what they want to be working on, where they think they are strongest, and what would make them happy and productive versus bored. Frame it in terms of something you're looking to improve. Well, at my last performance evaluation I received some constructive criticism regarding X, so since then I've been doing Y and Z to focus on improving in that regard. Honestly though, if an interviewer asks you that ridiculous cliched question, either they have no idea what they're doing and or don't give a shit, or they aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. They aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. This is exactly it. There are no right answers, but there are certainly wrong answers. I once got a job partly because of my honest answer to this: I need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Edit. Ew, wow. Thanks for the gold and silver. RIP my inbox. Being vague. Can you elaborate? Yeah. Edit. Wow, was having a not so cool day but got here to see I got my first gold. Thanks, stranger. Now to figure out what it does. Figure out a skill that's not required for the job you are applying for, but is required for the job 2 promotions above that job. Then say it's your big weakness but that also you are looking to learn and develop that skill from people who are strong at it. Alternatively, if you're far enough along in your career that you have had several promotions and have reports/people to delegate to, you can say you were never as good as other people at skill someone below your job level must do /, but that's why you've learned to delegate it. Terrible handwriting is my biggest weakness. How so? You'll never know what I wrote down. It looks like a blind man wrote. Edit. And thank you everyone who wished me a happy cake day. I keep replying and whatnot but I'm about to go to work, so here is one big thank you. Also thanks for making it feel like I'm not alone on the bad handwriting thing. I've always been embarrassed about it, but I appreciate you all with horrid handwriting. I don't feel so alone. Smile. I interviewed a girl once and she said honestly, cake, I can never say no to it. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person, and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry. There are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer, just people that seemed comfortable and normal. Lol. I was asked this during an interview with Uber and I was completely caught off guard. I ended up fumbling and saying something along the lines of I cannot ride a unicycle, for which I immediately regretted. My biggest weakness is that sometimes in interviews, I have absolutely no idea how to answer some of the questions. Edit. Thanks for popping my gold cherry, stranger. What is your biggest weakness? Interpreting the semantics of a question while ignoring the pragmatics. Could you give an example? Yes. Random off topic, but I once had an interviewer ask me, if you were an item on the salad bar, what would you be and why? Which I replied, shredded cheese, because I'm full fat and straight off the block. They absolutely loved the answer and thought I was a quick thinker. But alas, I'm just frequently thinking about cheese. Eczema. You got eczema? As someone who interviews hundreds of people each year, this question stumps almost every person asked. The worst responses are, I have trouble being on time, I'm argumentative, I don't get along with. I also don't think disguising strengths as weaknesses is a good idea either. The best response I think I have heard, besides not being able to ride a unicycle, is, I make mistakes, but I am only human. I am sure I will make some mistakes along the way learning the ins and outs of this position, but as soon as I know I made a mistake, I try to fix it immediately and make sure it doesn't happen again. Just my 2 cents. One of my actual weaknesses, when I get nervous/excited, I tend to speak really fast and breathlessly. This can actually have a negative influence on my job as I work in healthcare and have to respond/communicate during emergencies. For my next interview, I will bring this up, and say I have discovered that taking a second to collect myself and take a deep breath seems to calm my nerves and allow me to do/say what is needed in a more collected manner. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. We have new videos every day. Here's a meme for you to enjoy. My weakness is I can get too focused on a task trying to perfect it, and waste time trying to get a 96 to a 97 when 90 is acceptable. On the blueprints we get they say there is a plus-minus tolerance of 3 mm for my measurements. That is way too huge, and I insist on trying to get it down to at least 1 mm. I often say something similar, like I get too focused on one particular problem, and sometimes have to just step back and leave it be for a while. To drive home the point, just keep going on and on with the answer and never stop. Recruiter here, just be completely honest. The hiring manager is looking for an honest answer because those who can't identify their areas of weakness aren't working on them. Edit. Getting lots of feedback here. The weakness question is being asked in a workplace, and so your answer should pertain to the workplace, not your personal life. Saying, well, I just can't resist brownies. That's not an answer as it pertains to the workplace. The interviewer is both assessing your ability to reflect on personal development as well as your self-awareness within the workplace. They want to know if after they hire you, you have the social maturity to keep work at work, and home at home. They're also trying to gauge whether or not you're going to be a future pain in their ass. So yes, give an honest answer, but still an answer as it relates to your profession. If you need an office reference, think how would Jim answer this question? Not how would Dwight answer this question? Here's a good example. Sometimes I get distracted at work, so I've recently started using an app to regulate my screen time. It's honest, it's related to the workplace, it's short and concise, it's a real issue, it shows that you're working on your issues. It also shows that you're a chill-ass dude because you didn't start talking about how you care too much or some fake bullshit. So I can't walk into a room without my giant schlong knocking things over is not a good answer? Asbestos. If you or a relative has been diagnosed with mesothelioma. Money. I'll work much harder if you pay me more. Honesty. I don't think honesty is a weakness. I don't give a fuck what you think. I think this is related. For my current jobs interview, Near the end, my, now, manager opened up the laptop, opened Excel and asked me to do some equations there. Now, I didn't know any Excel at the time, even though the job description required it. I looked a little embarrassed at him and then told him, okay, please bear with me. Then I minimized Excel, opened browser, Google, how to multiply Excel equation. I sneak peek at him while I'm doing this and he's smiling. Then, I followed the instructions and completed the task. He was like, you got the job buddy, XD. Then he told me it was actually great to see me genuinely express my weakness in an area, and impressed how I dealt with it. D. Edit. He did end up sending to get a quick course on Excel BTW. In my most recent interview, got the job, I answered I don't like to stay late. I'll come in half an hour early at the drop of a hat. But if you tell me I'm off at 4 and then work conspires to try to keep me longer, I will not be staying. Work stops at 4, period. Depending on the job and culture, this can break your chances of getting the job, but pretty much anyone can sympathize with not wanting to stay later, and it doesn't come off as one of those smart-ass I'm a perfectionist answers. It also tells them that you probably won't be racking up that expensive overtime. I printed out a card that says sometimes I over-prepare and handed it to them when they asked it. I got the job. If you are a shy, quiet person like myself, mention it. I let them know up front that I am a naturally quiet person, especially around new people, and it sometimes comes off the wrong way. People tend to think I am in a bad mood, or have a rude personality, or just don't like them. Then when they get to know me they do a 180, so I let them know from the beginning that I am quiet, but it doesn't mean I'm in a bad mood or don't like them or anything. I just don't talk much until I get to know people. I have absolutely no patience for office politics, conspiracies, bullying, micromanagement, or corporate cheerleading. I want to work somewhere friendly and open and fair, where I can treat colleagues as equals and be pretty much left to do my job. In return, I can do it extremely well. Plot twist, the type of company that still asks this question is also likely to have high levels of micromanaging, bullying, and office politics. My big dick is always getting caught on things and knocking things. So dishonesty is your biggest weakness? Hyper-focus to absolutely no focus at all. Also ADHD is something I put as a weakness and strength. I'm not sure, let me check Stack Overflow real quick. Recruiter, so you're already familiar with our workflow. You're hired. Radiation. Kryptonite. I work too hard and need very little compensation. Interviewer, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Me, I'd say my biggest weakness is listening. I'd shit about this job. I work too hard, I care too much, and sometimes I can be too invested in my job. Big ass titties, nothing better than a sweet pair of ass titties. Ligma, what's Ligma? Lig ma balls lamau, you're hired. I always say that my biggest weaknesses are the ones I don't know about yet, because the ones I do know about I can, and do, work to improve on. And then I segue into a conversation about how I take criticism very well and am always open to suggestions for ways in which I can improve my performance. I actually don't love this. It seems like a cop-out. If you added in a weakness that you had improved on, that would be better. It's a BS question. 99% of answers will be lies or cop-outs. My biggest weakness is the inability to think of good answers to bad interview questions. The throat. Dwight Schrute approves this message. The eyes are the groin of the head. Takes out a gorgeously calligraphed high-quality embossed card, slides it in silence over to the interviewer. It reads, sometimes, the quality of my preparatory work causes people to consider me arrogant. Heroin addiction. My greatest weakness is the inability to answer this question. An actual weakness you do have, and stop with the I'm perfectionists, I'm too helpful and all that jazz. No one believe it anymore, you're not fooling anyone, and some might think you're taking them for stupid people. Not a great thing to convey. Also, usually, you have 2 weeks of probation period. They will see your actual weaknesses during that time. If you weren't honest during your interview, that won't help building trust between you and management. Not a good thing. So talk about an actual weakness you have, and what you're doing to improve on it. And it has to be something related to the job you're seeking. So talk about an actual weakness you have, and what you're doing to improve on it. If you do go the real weakness route, Pick a technical skill weakness than a character weakness. I'm not very good at Microsoft Excel is a lot easier to fix than I procrastinate. I tried this one during an interview after reading similar advice elsewhere. The interviewer barely kept himself from rolling his eyes, then bluntly said he specifically wanted to hear about a personality weakness, not about a skill I do or do not have. The question isn't about your technical expertise, it's about who you are, and how you'll fit in with the job, team, and company culture. It's a disarming question, and that's the point. It's very easy to tell when your answer isn't genuine or something you prepped in advance.